energy to the state of Virginia would provide the most amount of jobs. So the governor of Virginia he's got the right motivation. It's his job to stimulate our economy and provide jobs, but he's behind the wrong horse. Relying on natural gas and building these pipelines is a job killer. All right? Thank you.
Make sure you mention MVP too. It's not just Dominion.
MVP and Dominion. The hell with both.
Thank you, Rick Shingles. Can we get one more round of applause? Next, I want to bring up Diana Jay, who's a co-founder of the Virginia Student Environmental Coalition, who's been a tireless advocate of bringing youth engagement and really stimulating young folks' involvement in these fights. So here she is.
Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for all of you coming out today and showing up here. My name, as Drew said, is Diana Jay, and Drew's modest. Drew and I built Virginia Student Environmental Coalition together back in 2013, so it's been a long journey, but there's absolutely climate movement building here in Virginia. And the story I want to share with you all today is actually about what I was up to last year and why I'm back here again in Virginia. I graduated from the University of Virginia in May of last year, and after a couple years of building the student movement in Virginia, I got a bit starry-eyed and was thinking about that big international climate treaty that was being built last year, the Paris Agreement that was signed at the end of 2015. And so after I graduated from the University of Virginia, I left the country and I spent most of last year in Europe building and working with international youth from all over the world, building a coalition of young people advocating for a stronger, more ambitious Paris Agreement. And what we were focused on was this piece of the agreement called the long-term goal. Because at the start of this agreement, it was only supposed to speak to the next 5 years, the next till 2025 or 2030. And we said, no, we need to have an agreement that is telling a different story about the development of humanity. Dominion, the fossil fuel industry, part of their power is saying that we need fossil fuels. It's a story of inevitability, saying that this is how things must be, this is the life we must live, and we know that that's not true, and we need to be telling a different story, one that says it's possible to be fossil free, and that we can build clean, renewable energy that works for everyone. And so we were advocating on this piece of the agreement called the long-term goal, and saying that we need a commitment to zero emissions by 2050. And it was young people and frontlines leadership from all over the world that rallied this into the agreement. And by the end of 2015, we did have a long-term goal, and all of the governments of the world have committed to bring emissions down to zero within my lifetime. It wasn't 2050, it's not as ambitious as we needed or what we absolutely wanted, but it is huge to have that commitment.
You're going to live a long time, right?
What?
You're going to live a long time, right?
Hopefully, I mean, with what the agreement actually says is zero anthropogenic emissions after mid-century by a timeline guided by science. And we know that science is on our side, and that means that's within my lifetime we need to bring carbon emissions down to zero. But the point is that the reason we have that is because people demanded it. It didn't come from the politicians, it came from movements around the world saying we are building a different story for humanity. But throughout that year, I also built up huge energy to get back to Virginia because I know that this is where the work is. This is where we need to make it happen, and I'm committed to organizing in Virginia until we shut down these pipelines and start actually seeing real wins in our state. Because the torch has been handed to the state level, and 2016 is the year for bold action in our state to build the state that we know is possible. And I also want to share, I think my start with the climate movement was in 2011 when I got a call from a good friend who was sleeping under a desk at a Chesapeake Climate Action Network office, and she said, "Diana, I'm getting arrested tomorrow." And I said, "Elise, what? Why are you doing that?" And she said, "You need to come to DC." And she was getting arrested for the Keystone XL pipeline, and I cheered her on the next day as her, Elise, and hundreds of others were taken away in the police wagons, and it kickstarted thousands of arrests against the Keystone XL pipeline. The other important piece of that story is that when those people started organizing against Keystone, they had no intention to win. They wanted to make a fuss about something that was bad. They said, this is wrong, we're going to put our bodies on the line and say that it's wrong and call it out. They had no intention to stop that pipeline, and here we are 7 years later, and Keystone has been outright rejected because of and we have our fight in Virginia, and we know what it looks like. It looks like these pipelines crossing and dividing our state, and we can win if we believe it and fight for the state that we believe is possible. So thank you all so much for showing up today. Let's build that different story of what Virginia can be and should be.
Work we built by bringing people together across the state. And with that, I'm going to invite up Roberta Bondurant. Let's give her a warm round of applause.
Drew, thank you, and thank you for all your work on behalf of people along the ACP and the MVP. I'm going to try to make this real quick. Several of us are trying to make our way down to Franklin County, where Roanoke Gas purports to be planning a tap-in to the MVP at a 1% interest. We have yet to see actually the need, according to that PEIS, whether that's determined. But I want to go back, and I might be repeating a little bit of what Joanna Saladis has said, but I want to talk about property rights again, because that's what we're asking legislators to do here today. That's a real fundamental question, and it's a place upon which we can all set and agree. As it stands now, if MVP and ACP have their way, we will witness a proposal of potentially 4 pipelines, the largest seizure of private property in generations in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You're aware of the survey statute. It allows surveyors to come on private lands, doing auger borings, testing water, testing soil, essentially without notice, because the notice provisions, as written by lobbyists for gas companies, are unintelligible. Those are one of the issues that are being played out in federal court, that neither the surveyors nor the property owners can actually comply with the notice provisions. They're circular. But in the face of that, what stands are the principles that are set forth in the United States Constitution that recognize due process before any taking of life, liberty, or property. What's within the concept of property? And let me go back. That was affirmed in the 2012 constitutional amendment by the Commonwealth of Virginia. But within that concept of property, that's just so fundamental from our founding fathers, that they sought to protect the idea of property. Because within your property, you have your cultural identity, your income, your security, your privacy, your right to be let alone from undue government intrusions. Yet here, within the survey statute, if legislators choose to do nothing and leave it in place, we have a government enabling a private entity to take what is ours. We can't let that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time for Roberta. Is Viola Baskerville out in the crowd? Viola? All right, I'm going to invite Kenda Hanuman up to talk. We know that pipelines are something we're all fighting. Another thing that's unfortunately accompanies these pipelines are compressor stations. And right now there's a plan for one in Buckingham County that I'd like to let Kenda talk about.
Thank you. Wow, you look good. Compressor stations are needed because pipelines can't operate without pushing the gas through the line. And I've heard a Dominion rep say, oh, it's just a little fan. Well, it's 41,000 horsepower with a plan to increase it possibly 2 more times. This is not a little fan. We find that generally compressor stations are needed every 50 to 80 miles along pipelines. That means that Buckingham is 1 in Virginia when you have over 500 miles. Do the math. You're going to have a compressor station in your neighborhood if they get what they want, and especially if they increase the amount of gas that they're going to ship, which is also another alternative that's being discussed. The reason we don't like these compressor stations, currently the land they bought is in an African American community, people that basically have no internet. They do have no internet lines. If they get some kind of a jetpack, they may get on, but most of them don't have any communication with each other except going door to door. This thing emits constant toxins. Lots of methane, which we know is more potent than CO2 in a greenhouse gas. When methane interacts with the sun, it becomes formaldehyde, which is not a good thing to be inhaling. There's many toxins, which I can't even pronounce the names of, that will constantly be emitted into this air in a community where there are hundreds of people with emphysema, they're elderly, there are some young children, and this just can't stand.
Climate justice. Climate justice.
Definitely, let's have some more justice. Thank you for standing for justice and say no to compressor stations and pipelines.
One more time for Kenda, please. So I want to thank you all again for coming in from across the state to lobby our legislators today. Does anyone know how cold it is right now? Did we break 30 today? Once again, I think that proves how firm the resolve is across this state that we don't need these pipelines. I want us all to come together and end this with a chant so that we can go back into the General Assembly building this afternoon filled with energy to keep pushing forward. I'm not going to use this mic.
Mic check!
Mic check!
What do we want?
What do we want?
What do we want?